Hello everyone, in this video I'll be ranking the best very rare weapons in Baldur's Gate 3 on a tier list. So they aren't legendary, but they're still extremely good. And some of them are better than legendary weapons. I'll be going over 31 different weapons in this tier list, starting first with the Torch of Revocation. So this is a pretty interesting one because we get this as part of an Act 3 quest. And at this point, you're not going to use a torch as a weapon, so it's not amazing. It does 1d4 plus 1 bludgeoning damage, plus a 1d4 of necrotic damage. A cool little feature is any druid can use torches with their Shillelagh or Shillelagh spell, and then they get a little bit extra damage from it because it's going to replace the 1d4 damage, but still keeps the fire or necrotic damage that this one has. This one is just not that good. I'm going to put it in the roleplay tier because it is just a fair weapon overall and not one you're really going to ever use. But we next have the Bohemian Rhapsody, which is an incredible weapon. It's just called Rhapsody. You get this from Cazador, but it's actually extremely good. So what it does is you get a +1 to attack rolls and damage rolls and spell save DC rolls for every foe that you slay up to a +3. So +3 to spell save DC and to your attack rolls and damage rolls. This goes extremely well on a bard and also on like an arcane trickster rogue. Not that you should ever really want to play one, but it is a pretty good weapon. And it also gives you the sweet bloodletting, so possibly inflict bleeding when hitting a target with this weapon while hiding or invisible. So if you have greater invisibility on your bard and attack with this, you can bleed them, which will do 2 slashing damage, and then also possibly get yourself some extra spell save DC. It does 1d4 plus 1 piercing damage. It's light finesse and a throwable weapon. This is a pretty good weapon, all things considered. I would say the Rhapsody, I don't know if I should put it in the S tier. It has a really good ability with that Scarlet Remittance, with that +1 to attack rolls, damage rolls. I'll put it in the A tier for now. It could potentially be an S tier. We'll decide later on. But next we got the Stillmaker. So this one I absolutely love because it comes with one of my favorite spells. It gives you a level 3 casting of Hold Person, which lets you do it to 2 people. So this weapon does the 1d4 plus 2 piercing damage. So that's really great because piercing damage can be doubled with a ballist armor. And it also comes with Pommel Strike, which is kind of weird for a weapon of this size. And it also gets Lacerate, so it kind of has like some greatsword benefits because the greatswords will have Lacerate and Pommel Strike as well. This is a pretty good one. I would say it's... I personally think it's a little bit better than the Rhapsody because getting Hold Person for critical hits is huge and can work really well on any type of rogue build. Hold Person is an amazing spell, and then also getting Pommel Strike, which can possibly daze the target, which would set them up for a Hold Person. This could be S tier. I'm going to put the Stillmaker in the A tier though. The nice thing about Pommel Strike is it gives the target disadvantage on wisdom saving throws, which is what Hold Person does. So if you hit them with that and then also hit them with the Hold Person, that's really good. A Band of the Mystic Scoundrel Bard, I could talk about that all day. It's a very underrated weapon. Next we have the Dancing Breeze, and I actually think that this weapon is incredible for a number of reasons, but the biggest, it's an extra reach weapon, and it's also a finesse weapon, so you can sneak attack with the Dancing Breeze. It does 1d10 plus 2 slashing damage, and it also has the Whirlwind attack, so whirl your body around in a punishing swirl, striking all nearby foes. So a very unique weapon action. It has Brace, Melee, Rush Attack, and Lacerate. It's two-handed, extra reach, and it's a finesse weapon. I think that the Dancing Breeze is an S tier weapon because it works really well on a number of builds. Most notably, if you have someone with the Sentinel perk and the Polearm Master perk, they can make a huge benefit from this. In addition, you could add in a single level of Rogue and let them sneak attack with this weapon. So that's pretty freaking cool. Very versatile, and I love when the weapons have unique patterns like that. So I have to put this in the S tier. I know there's a lot of people that love the Dancing Breeze as well, so I'm hoping no one's disappointed with this. I think it's S tier because it has so many nice benefits. But next we have a weapon that frustrates me, the Hellfire greataxe. This was pretty much designed with Karlach in mind, and it has a cool ability. So it has the thermodynamo. So whenever you deal damage with this weapon, you gain 2 turns of heat, and Karlach's resistant to the fire damage that would come from that. So that's nice. And then we also have the Hellflame Cleave, which spews hellish flames around you and strikes your foes. The reason that this frustrates me is because you can't use that while you're raging. So Karlach, who would be a barbarian typically, can't actually use the main weapon's function while she's raging, and that's just kind of sucks because this literally is like fully intended for Karlach. It's still a pretty good weapon. It does 1d12 plus 2 slashing damage plus a 1d6 of fire damage, I like the Hellfire greataxe quite a bit, but the unfortunate part is you can't use that cleave attack while you're raging for whatever reason. So I would say it's a B tier to maybe an A tier option. Yeah, we'll put it A tier because I do think it's still a good weapon, and fire damage is fun to mess around with. I just wish that I respec my card lock into a fighter in my first playthrough because I accidentally took out Lae'zel. So yeah, I would say it's A tier if you do something like that. Next we have Sethan. So this is the greataxe Sethan. It's a very convoluted one that you have to go through specific dialogue options while you're in Rivington to be able to select it or to be able to purchase this, but I love this weapon because it has two really great things. So it has a spiritual weapon summon. So normally clerics are the only ones that can do spiritual weapon, but with this you can do it as well. And that's really nice because spiritual weapon is super powerful. This does 1d12 plus 2 slashing damage. Pretty typical, but the Sethan spiritual weapon is amazing because it's a bonus action and it's a summon. So that's amazing. I would say that Sethan is probably... It also has the reduce perk as well. I don't know if I'd put it in the S tier. I might put it... Yeah, we'll put Hellfire greataxe down a tier, and we'll put this one in the A tier. The spiritual weapon is fantastic. I'm not a huge fan of great axes. I find that the damage is a little bit more inconsistent because you can roll a 1 damage die on that. Whereas great swords have a 2d6. So if you have like the savage attacker, that'll boost its damage a little bit further. I think it's the Sethan's a good one, though. It's the best great axe in the game. I wish we had more great axes and hammers, honestly. Next, though, we have the Sword of Chaos, and this is one of my favorite weapons, and it's one that I use pretty much my whole playthrough. Now, someone actually brought something cool to my attention on a previous video. This will heal you for a 1d6 on attack. If you're using the Wound Closure Amulet, you'll regain the 6 health every time. So if you're a fighter and you have haste, so you got 6 attacks, you use Action Surge for 9 attacks, and then you have a single level of the War Priest Cleric, that's 10 attacks. That means you regain 60 health in 1 turn. S tier, this is amazing. You do have to fight Sarevok to get this weapon, so it is a bit later in the game you get it, but it's one of the coolest looking weapons, and also one of the best. It deals 2d6 plus 2 slashing damage, plus 1d4 of necrotic, so even further damage. Necrotic's not an amazing damage type, but being able to heal is awesome. It comes with Pommel Strike, Lacerate, Cleave, and Rush Attack, so there's quite a bit on this sword. It's an amazing one. I really like the Sword of Chaos. Next we got one that I really, really like with the Hellfire hand crossbow. So this is a very powerful weapon that you get in Act 2. Hand crossbows in general are fantastic because it just gives you some really nice ability to deal damage from range. And if you're playing as a drow, you get proficiency for free, so that's awesome. So this also has the Hellstalker, possibly inflict burning on a target when you hit them from hiding or invisible. And it also gives you Scorching Ray. This is a really good one because it pairs well with the Fire Stoker, which you also get around the same time, which will deal additional 1 to 4 piercing damage on a burning target. So you typically want to use those both and get the burning off and then hit them with that extra damage. The Hellfire hand crossbow is incredible. I love hand crossbows, and I know a lot of people also love the hand crossbows, so I am going to throw it in the S tier just because we don't get many hand crossbows, and this one is quite good. It deals 1d6 plus 2 piercing damage, so that's pretty decent damage. The plus 2 enhancement's really nice on it, and the reason I'm putting it in S tier is you get it in Act 2, so you're going to get a good amount of use in with this, and it's just a really good option for damage. Now, it has a weapon art mobile shot, which is basically useless. Whenever you dash, you get a bonus action attack, but you get bonus action attacks with hand crossbows anyways, so... Next we got this would be probably the lowest on the S tier, but next we got one of my favorites, the Halberd of Vigilance. So this deals a 1d10 plus 1 slashing damage. In addition, it also deals a 1d10 or 1d4 of force damage, the best damage type in the game. On top of that, it has Sentinel Weapon, giving a plus 1 bonus to initiative rolls, which is huge. You always want to go first. It also gives advantage on perception ability checks, which is nice, not super essential. And it also gives you adroit reflexes, so when you make a attack roll as a reaction, you have it with advantage. So this works well if you're a defender, if you're a fighter with riposte. So anytime you use your reaction for your attacks, Sentinel perk, riposte, this gets extra damage. I'm going to put it up in the high S tier because it's fantastic. Extra reach and force damage. There's a lot to love with this one. Next we got the Handmaiden's Mace. Now this is an interesting one. I'm not going to be able to find it on this list here, but what's nice about this is it deals extra damage. You get this from fighting Viconia in Act 3. The only really downside to this weapon is the fact that it deals poison damage, which is not a good damage type, I'll be honest. 1d6 of poison's okay, but a lot of things resist it. It's not a bad one, though, and it also will set your strength to 18, so that's really nice, too, for having a little bit more strength. It's just a fair one, though. I'd probably put in the B tier, because poison just sucks as a damage type. Not terrible, but we get it near the end of the game, and by that point, you have so many better weapons to choose from. And especially in a stacked category like maces with the Blood of Lathander and the Sacred Star, which I'll talk about later. That's a Morning Star, but it's very good. Next, we got the Deadshot Bow. Now, this is a funky one because bows in general are, I feel like, underrated. So basically what the Deadshot does is it gives you your number to hit a critical hit is reduced by 1. And you double your proficiency bonus when rolling ranged weapon attacks with this weapon. So you get a higher hit chance. It deals a 1d8 plus 2 piercing damage. It has hamstring shot and brace, and has a weapon enhancement plus 2. It's a pretty good bow. I like this one. I'd probably say A tier, B tier. It's not a bad one. It's just, it doesn't have it has obviously the nice benefit of having a higher hit chance. So if you got someone that's just not hitting their shots, or also, I guess, if you have sharpshooter, this is a great bow for that. So that moves it up a little bit, I think. I just completely forgot about that. I end up using like the Titan string bow, the Gaunter mail, the hand crossbows, pretty much the whole game. So there's also some really good crossbows that we get in this game. So there's many options, which is sweet, but it's hard to pick one. Next, we got the Fabricated Arbalist. So this gives Illuminating Shot and Dazzling Ray class action and weapon action, which is nice. So basically, Dazzling Ray will be it blinds all the targets in an area, and you can possibly burn targets with it. And Illuminating Shot will light up and give radiating orbs to targets. This is a really good weapon, 1d10 plus 2 piercing damage. I'm going to put it probably in the middle of the pack, A tier. Really nice weapon actions. And if you have a radiating orb build, you got to throw this on. It's perfect for that. So, yeah, that is really huge. Next, we got the staff. And I'm drawing a blank on which staff we're talking about. So, we'll just give me a second here to find the correct staff. There's multiple that look similar. I don't want to get them wrong because we'll start with this one, the Incandescent staff. So, this one gives a +1 to spell attacks. It also gives resistance to fire damage, and it gives you firebolt and fireball. So that's really nice because if you play as like a warlock, you typically won't be getting yourself fireball unless you play as the fiend. And some other classes like to have it. If you're playing as like a druid, you might want to have those spells. So I would say it's probably about B tier. The resistance to fire damage is nice. That's a really big perk of it. Could be A tier for that. It does 1d6 bludgeoning if it's one-handed, so it's okay. You want to probably shillelagh it. But Fireball and Firebolt are really nice. So free casting a Fireball, level 3 spell is really great. It's probably the top of the B tier, not one you're going to use the entire game. However, this one you may use for the entire game. This is one of my favorite weapons, the Morning Frost. So it gives you Ray of Frost. It has a weapon enhancement +1. And when dealing cold damage, you deal an additional 1 cold damage. So really, any cold builds will benefit from this. And when you deal cold damage with a spell, possibly inflict chilled upon the target, which gives them a weakness to cold damage. And then if you cast Create Water, it freezes the target. So that's incredible because then you get advantage, or you get vulnerability. They get vulnerability to pierce bludgeoning damage. Sorry, they get vulnerability to bludgeoning damage, thunder damage, and force damage. This is huge. I would say that this is probably one of the best weapons in the game, and you get it in Act 1. Cold builds really rely on this. You don't need it, but it's very, very good. Next, we got ourselves some more staves. So we got the Staff of Spellpower. So alleviate the arcane burden of spellcasting with the staff. The next spell you cast does not cost a spell slot. And you also get a +1 to spell save DC and spell attack rolls. That's amazing. This is in the House of Hope, so it's a little bit later in the game. But the Staff of Spellpower works fantastic. So if you take the dual wielder perk, you can have the Marka Heshker legendary staff, and then also have this cast 2 chain lightning. So if you're a sorcerer, you can do 2 chain lightnings in one turn, and you still have your level 6 spell slot. As is S tier. It's definitely a very powerful one. And the +1 spell save DC and spell attack rolls is icing on the cake. This is really freaking good. Next, we got the Staff of the Ram. So once per turn, possibly knock a target back 2 meters and stun them. This has no effect on dragons or huge creatures. It has a +2 enhancement, which is kind of funny. Staff of the Ram is not good. It's actually my first C tier weapon. Just not as good as the other 2 staves that we have here, so it's unfortunate. But next we got the Woe, which gives you another +1 spell save DC and spell attack rolls. We really like that, and arcane enhancement. It also has arcane vampirism. So when creatures affected by your spells fail any associated saving throws, you regain 1 to 4 health points. And the wound closure amulet will make that 4 as well, but it's not frequent enough, like the Sword of Chaos, to be that great. You also get a free casting of level 4 Blight, so that's pretty decent as well. But I would say it's probably about B tier. Getting extra health on your spells is great, but just not as good as like a free level 6 spell or using the Morning Frost. So yeah, B tier I would say. Next we got ourselves the Pelov Sun Blade. So this deals 1d8 piercing +1 and a 1d4 of radiant damage. It also comes with Flourish, Piercing Strike, and Weakening Strike. This is not bad. It's actually a pretty good weapon. Radiant damage is nice, especially if you have a Radiating Orb build and you want to pass your gear off to another character in your team. I'd say it's probably B. Could be A tier to somewhere's B tier. Maybe I'll put it there. Pelor Sun Blade. Radiant damage is awesome, but it's kind of missing some other things to make it a truly amazing weapon. Next, we got Voss's Sword. This is an interesting one. Actually, I'm going to move that around because this list got mixed up. I was trying to get these all in correct order, but I guess we'll go back up to the bow because we do got a few options here. No, we'll go with the Sacred Star next. So this is one of my favorite weapons because it's another radiant damage spell, or another radiant damage weapon. So it does 1d8 +2 piercing damage. So big ups, piercing damage is awesome. This is the best Morning Star. And it also deals 1d4 of radiant damage. So that's huge. And on hit, you inflict 1 turn of radiating orb on the target. That's a status. So if you have the Boots of Stormy Clamor, that's 2 stacks of reverberation on top of it. And also undead creatures that are stuck with this are possibly turned. So a nice little extra bonus. And also it has the Dawn Burst Strike, so deal additional radiant damage equal to your proficiency bonus on hit. Light erupts around you in an area, and they must succeed a DC 13 Constitution saving throw, or become blinded. The Sacred Star is an incredible weapon, and a very underrated one at that. It works well with builds that are building off of vulnerability to piercing damage, and it's great on a Paladin that's got radiating orbs. I did a build recently with Cleric and Paladin that works with this, with Spirit Guardians to deal a ton of damage. Very powerful, so I have to put it in the S tier. This is just a really great weapon. So yeah, I really like it. It's got a lot going for it. No real big downsides to it either, because being able to deal the damage and get additional radiant damage is so massive. So yeah, it's good. Next we have Voss's Silver Sword. So this deals 1d8 +2 slashing plus 1d4 of psychic damage. And you can also two-hand it and change the 1d8 to a 1d10. It has the Interplanar Slayer, which deals a 1d4 damage bonus to Githyanki, Aberrations, Fiends, and Elementals. In Act 3, you fight a ton of those. Aberrations are Mind Flayers and the like, anything similar. Githyanki are the Githyanki. Fiends and Elementals are scattered everywhere in Act 3. Because of the prevalence of the damage, the enemies that are weak to this weapon, I have to put it a little bit higher. It's not a sword that I typically think about often when I'm playing this game, but it gives you such nice benefits that I just can't help but think it's a great weapon. It also possibly frightens the target and they become easier to hit and cannot move, so you get Wrathful Smite on it, so getting a free smite's also really nice. Psychic damage is also really great because you can use the Resonance Stone to make that 1d4 basically a 2d4. So it's great. And next we got ourselves, I guess we'll go with the Sword of Life Stealing because I think that one's nearby on this list that I'm going through with all the effects. I already did the Dead Shot. Maybe I downloaded that image twice because I don't think there's another bow. So yeah, there should be another bow. What is it? The Dead Shot. I will find it eventually. So I guess we'll move on to the next one. This list is a little bit disorganized, but we got the I guess my list is disorganized. We got the Foe Breaker. So this is a hammer, and deals 2d6 plus 2 bludgeoning damage. So bludgeoning damage is kind of nice. Lots of targets are weak to it. And it also has the lethal weapon, which gives it the ability to ignore bludgeoning resistance. So if you have a target that's resistant to it, not no more. They still get hurt by this. Two-handed weapon plus 2 enhancement. It's pretty good. I'd probably put it at the bottom of the A tier. Ignoring resistance to bludgeoning damage is huge. So if you really want to use a big bonk hammer, this is the one to use. This is probably the best in the game. So very, very powerful. And next we got ourselves the, let's see here. There's some very rare weapons that didn't actually make it into the game too. So that's pretty interesting. Like there's a weapon called the Impaler. Reminds me of the Mesmer the Impaler from Elden Ring. But I guess we got the Staff of Cherished Necromancy next. This is one of my favorite weapons personally because it has an ability that if it was for any other school of magic, it would be S+++ tier. But basically, so it has 1d6 plus 2 bludgeoning damage plus 1d4 necrotic. You're not going to hit people with it because the best benefits are these two things. So heightened necromancy. Creatures have disadvantage on saving throws against your necromancy spells. That's awesome. Getting disadvantage on spell saves is huge. It means you're going to be more likely to hit them. But this is the big benefit here. Life Essence Harvest. This, whenever you kill a hostile target with a spell, you take its life energy. So you can take the life essence and cast another level 6 spell for free. So where this becomes really good, guys, is if you have a necromancer wizard who regains double or triple the spell's level back from a necromancy spell. So if you hit a target with Circle of Death, you get 18 health back. Now, this will allow, if you kill a target with Circle of Death, which is a huge area of effect explosion, you can cast it again for free. So you can continually cast a level 6 spell over and over every single turn and regain 18 health points from it. This is S tier. It's extremely good. Some people don't like it because necromancer spells aren't fantastic in this game because necrotic damage is so highly resisted by a lot of things, and we fight a lot of undead which are resistant to it, but it's a good weapon. I think it's an amazing weapon, and being able to cast a level 6 spell is huge. Very, very good. So I would say it's a good weapon. Next, we got ourselves the Belm. So Belm is one of my favorite weapons because this is from Baldur's Gate 2. What makes this weapon so good is if you put it in the offhand, you get a bonus action attack with your main hand weapon. So that's actually very, very good. Some people really like the Duelist Prerogative because it gives you the bonus action attack as well. But this will make it so it's with your main hand. The Belm is the best offhand weapon in the game. I'd have to say it's a high S tier weapon. This is incredible. It comes from Baldur's Gate 2. And it's cool because it makes your weapons work how Baldur's Gate 2 weapons work. So if you had a weapon in the offhand, you get a bonus action attack with your main hand. So pretty fancy that they made it work the same. Next, we got the Justiciar Scimitar. So this is a good one for Astarion, despite, or even if you got a Shadowheart that's kind of spec'd into a rogue, because it does 1d6 plus 2 slashing damage, but it also has Shadow Blinding. So if you attack with advantage, you have a chance to blind your target, which gives them disadvantage on attacks, which is huge because you're much less likely to get hit by them. It also has the Shadow Soak Strike. So strike an enemy, adding your proficiency bonus to the damage. Moreover, if the attack hits, it also deals an additional 1d6 psychic damage. This attack doesn't break concealment. So that's a really good weapon attack from this as well. Justiciar Scimitar is probably like an S tier weapon because it's just good. If it did piercing damage, it'd be a little bit better. I might put it A tier even. Yeah, we'll put it A tier. I don't know if it's S tier weapon. I do have a pretty stacked S tier. So 3 stabs, but they're all great staves. And also Handfire crossbows, fantastic. But yeah, there's so many good weapons in this game, it's hard to pick them all. Actually, I found what this one is. So this is the Bladebringer. Attacking gnomes or dwarves with this weapon gets a plus 1d4 to attack roll and damage roll. So good if you want to attack gnomes and dwarves, I guess. I've always had this, but I've never used it that much. And when this weapon lands a critical hit, it slows the target creature. So that's pretty good too if you can get critical hits off. Now you're typically not going to be able to use the hold person on a target and attack within 3 meters to be able to get this off. So that kind of stings. Does 1d6 plus 1 piercing damage. I might just put this in the C tier because there's not enough dwarves and gnomes to really get a good benefit from this. So yeah, it just feels like a little bit lackluster compared to some of the others that may get a little bit better benefits. So next we got the Knife of the Undermountain King. This is a really good one. It has the Organ Rearranger. So when the wielder scores a critical hit while rolling a 19, and they roll 2 damage die or less, re-roll the die, taking the higher result. So flat out higher damage and a higher critical hit chance. We like that. It also has Shadow Blade, so you have advantage on attack rolls against lightly or heavily obscured targets when using this blade. So typically you want to use this with like a darkness build or something that can obscure the targets, like Fog Cloud. 1d6 plus 2 piercing damage, light, and finesse. This is an S tier weapon. It's a really good knife, and typically on your rogues or sword bards, this is going to be what they equipped, because that's just so many benefits, and it's a good weapon to put in offhand or main hand. So next we got ourselves the Sword of Light Stealing. So this is a great one. On critical hit, the target takes an extra 1 to 10 necrotic damage. So that's great on a critical hit, as long as it isn't a construct or undead. And you also gain 10 temporary health. This can be amazing if you're setting up Hold Person, because that's 10 health, or possibly 10 more damage, and you regain 10 health points, temporary health points. So that's pretty solid. I would say it's probably middle of the A tier. It looks like the Sword of Chaos too, which is kind of cool. It also has Flourish as weapon action. It's a finesse weapon too, so all the benefits of having a finesse weapon, and it's great. So yeah, really good weapon. Next we got ourselves this is a funky one. This is one of my favorite weapons personally. The Trident of Waves. I think this is one of the most underrated weapons in the game too. On hit, create a 2-meter water surface centered around the target. So we can apply wet to targets. So if you got a full Storm Sorcerer build, like if you have a Storm Sorcerer, a Tempest Cleric, and like a Cold Sword Bard, putting this on your, like a Throw Zerker is huge. It has the Thrown Weapon perk, so it's great on Eldritch Knights or throwing Barbarians. This is really good. 1d6 plus 1 piercing damage. So piercing damage is a great damage type, but it's that water surface that's so good. I'm going to put it at the top of the A tier. I almost put it in S tier because I really do think it's a great weapon, but someone would probably not like that because it just gives water. Not every team is built around create water, but it's really great on teams that are. So yeah, high A tier could be S tier. I think it's S tier, but I'm going to put it A tier. We're running low on the weapons here, but next we got the Dwarven Thrower. This is a funky one. So this weapon will return to your hand when you throw it. A dwarf throwing this warhammer deals an extra 1d8 bludgeoning damage. If the target is large, huge, or gargantuan, it deals an additional 2d8 bludgeoning damage, and it does 1d8 plus 2 bludgeoning damage normally. This is actually a really good hammer. I'm going to put it probably in the B tier, though, because you have to play as a dwarf, and not everyone's playing as dwarves. There is one hireling that you can make a dwarf, so if you wanted to build around it, that's great. But one of the biggest benefits is only available to dwarves. However, it does deal extra damage to huge, large, or gargantuan enemies. 2d8, it's nothing to snuff at. Pretty good, but it's a throwing weapon, so kind of limited in its application. So I'll probably put it somewhere around here. It's not a bad weapon, but it's just a tricky one to really get the most out of. So yeah, that is that. Next, we got the Infernal Rapier. So this is part of Will's quest line. If you free Mizora, you can ask her for this. I really like it. It gives you a +1 to your spell save DC, which is nice, especially on like a Warlock. It also uses your Charisma modifier as the modifier for attack rolls. So that is also really good. So I guess it's any spellcasting modifier. So that's massive. It also gives you Planar Ally Cambion, which is huge. A level 6 spell for free, massive. And it uses your spellcasting modifier. The Infernal Rapier is just too good of a weapon to not put in a high tier. So I'm going to put it in the S tier. It is also relatively easy to get too. So you can get it pretty much without struggle, and that's nice because it just brings so many benefits. Getting a summon that has like 87 health is really great because that's 87 temporary health pretty much. That means your team's less likely to get hit by it. Also, the Cambions have a lower armor class, so they're more likely to attract attacks, which is also huge. So lots of benefits to this weapon. I just think that it's great too on Will. It looks cool as well. I think that the Infernal Rapier is definitely an S tier weapon. Finally, we got the Hellfire Engine Crossbow. This is 1d10 of piercing damage +2. And it's the only way that you can get a level 4 lightning arrow spell. So that's included too. It also has piercing shot and brace and the reposition malefactor. So that is a really good weapon. So you can get this from the Steelwatch Foundry. It's a very high powered weapon. And that nice lightning arrow level 4 is huge. I would say that it's probably like high B tier to low A tier. This is tricky to rank them because there's just so many. Very rare has the most stacked lineup. All these weapons are good. It's not like Legendary also has obviously really good weapons, but yeah, this was a tricky one. There's so many S tier weapons in the very rare tier. So yeah, That's my thoughts on all the very rare weapons in Baldur's Gate 3. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video fun, please hit the subscribe button. Really appreciate it. I hope you have a great day, and thank you so much for watching.